What if the most powerful man on the frontier tried to keep his scarred daughter hidden from the world, and one ordinary ranch hand crossed a crowded dance floor anyway? The lanterns were swaying, the music was slow, everyone was watching, and when I took her hand, the room went silent. They saw her scar, I saw her strength. Moments later, a sudden spark, a rush of smoke, and a storm rolling over the prairie would force us to face the one memory she feared most. But that night was never just about a dance. It was about defying a father's fear, defying a town's judgment, and proving that love built through fire, sweat, and open sky can outlast any storm. Stay with me, because what happened after that first dance changed her father, changed the frontier, and changed me forever. Thank you for listening to this heartfelt story. If it moved you, please like, share it, comments below, and let someone know you are never alone. The frontier wind carried dust and violin music across the ranch that night. Lanterns swung from cedar beams, boots scraped wood, laughter floated like smoke. I had come to fix fences for the richest man in the territory, the CEO of 3 rail lines, a man whose handshake felt like iron. Then I saw her. She stood near the corral lights, white dress, gloves to her wrists, a silver scar curved from her temple to her jaw, pale against sun-kissed skin. The crowd stared too long. She stared back longer, defiant, alone. When the band struck a slow waltz, I felt every eye turn as I crossed the floor. My boots felt heavy, my throat felt dry. Up close, I smelled lavender and saddle leather. Her eyes held storms and sunlight together. "Dance with me," I said. A flicker of shock, a pause in the room. Her father's jaw tightened near the whiskey barrels. She placed her gloved hand in mine, warm, steady. We moved, slow circles beneath lantern light. Her scar brushed my cheek like a secret. "I survived fire," she whispered. The word fire cracked through me. I imagined heat, splintering beams, lonely hospital nights. "I see you," I answered. Her breath trembled. The music swelled. Boot heels faded. Only her pulse against my palm remained. The barn doors burst open with a sharp gust. Lantern flames shook. Horses neighed in alarm. Her father stepped forward, voice sharp as barbed wire. The room held its breath. She lifted her chin. "I choose this dance." Silence fell hard. Dust shimmered in the air like suspended judgment. My heart thundered so loud I felt it in my ribs. Then she leaned close, her scar catching golden light. "I forget many things," she said softly, "but I forget you never." The confession struck deeper than any storm, because I knew the truth. Every fence I repaired, every mile I rode, every risk I took on that frontier, she was the reason. And as the music rose again and her father turned away with a slow, surrendering breath, I held her closer beneath the trembling lanterns, feeling the vast land stretch around us, wild and wounded, ready for healing, ready for love. And I understood that redemption begins with one brave step across a crowded floor, one steady hand offered in a room full of doubt. And I kept dancing with her as the night deepened and the wind carried our promise beyond the ranch gates into the endless frontier where our story kept unfolding and unfolding. Her fingers tightened around mine, as if the music alone held the sky together. Outside, the prairie rolled in silver waves beneath a rising moon. Inside, whispers pressed against my back. Her father watched from the shadows near the bar, his expression carved from old regret. She drew me toward the open barn doors. Cool night air kissed the heat from our faces. Crickets sang. Horses shifted in their stalls. "I grew up behind glass," she said softly. "Boardrooms, cameras, sympathy." The word sympathy tasted bitter between us. I felt the roughness of my palms against her silk gloves. I wanted to offer something greater than pity, so I offered truth. "I see strength," I said. "I see fire that chose to live." Her breath caught. Not fragile, awakened. A sudden crack split the quiet. One lantern inside toppled. Gasps rippled through the hall. Flame licked along scattered hay. For one sharp second, the scent of smoke wrapped around us. Her body froze. Memory flashed across her eyes like lightning. Heat, collapse, loss. I felt her tremble, not from fear alone, from remembering. I stepped in front of her, boot crushing sparks. Men rushed with buckets. Water hissed against wood. The fire shrank to steam and darkness. Silence returned, heavier than before. She stared at the fading smoke, then at me. "You stayed," she whispered, as if staying was rare, as if staying was love. Her father approached slowly, hat in hand. Moonlight softened the hard lines of his face. "She needs someone steady," he said. His voice carried no command, only truth. I met his gaze. "I am steady." The prairie wind lifted her hair, revealing the silver path across her skin. No longer a mark of ruin, a mark of survival. She slipped off one glove and placed her bare hand over my heart. The shock of her touch grounded me deeper than any oath. Around us, the ranch breathed again. Lanterns relit, music rising carefully, life choosing to continue. She leaned close, warmth against my ear. "Dance with me again." And beneath the vast frontier sky, with smoke fading and courage rising, I guided her back toward the light, knowing every step forward would demand work, patience, forgiveness, and a love strong enough to face every spark that tried to return. And as the band found its rhythm once more, and our boots met the floor in quiet defiance, I felt the future opening wide before us, waiting for the next test, the next choice, the next brave breath we would take together. The fiddle carried a softer tune now, almost careful, as if the room feared another spark. Her bare hand remained over my heart, warm, certain. Each beat answered her touch. Around us, ranch hands rebuilt calm with quiet gestures. Boots nudged charred hay aside, buckets returned to hooks, breath returned to lungs. She searched my face, not for charm, for promise. "I am tired of being protected," she said. The confession settled between us like dust after a storm. "I want to build something that stands." Her father lingered near the doorway, watching, measuring. The frontier stretched beyond him, miles of raw land, fences broken by winter, fields waiting for seed. I pictured calloused mornings, shared labor, honest sweat beneath open sky. "You deserve more than rescue," I said. "You deserve partnership." Her eyes glistened, not weak, determined. The band quickened, couples spun again, laughter returned in cautious waves, yet tension hummed low in my ribs. Because love on this land demanded proof, not poetry. Her father stepped forward at last. "Walk with me," he said, his voice steady as rail steel. Shock brushed my spine. The room quieted once more. She squeezed my fingers once, faith pressed into that single touch. I followed him into the night. Cold air sharpened every breath. The scent of smoke lingered faintly. He faced the dark fields. "I built empires," he said, "yet I failed to shield her from pain." The admission cracked something open. Wind moved through tall grass like whispered judgment. "I cannot give her a smaller world," he continued, "but I can choose the man who stands beside her." His gaze met mine, heavy, testing. Behind us, through the barn doors, I saw her silhouette framed in gold light, waiting, trusting. My pulse steadied. "I stand," I said, "for storms, for work, for healing." Silence followed, long enough to feel eternity stretch thin. Then he nodded once, not surrender, acceptance beginning to grow. When I returned to her, the music swelled stronger than before. She read the answer in my eyes. Relief softened her shoulders. Hope brightened her scar like polished silver. She drew me close again, boots brushing, breath mingling, and as we moved across the worn wooden floor with new resolve shaping every step, I sensed the frontier itself leaning toward us, waiting to see whether love forged in fire and tested in smoke could rise stronger than memory, stronger than fear, stronger than the vast uncertain miles that still lay ahead of us, waiting to be claimed by hands willing to work and hearts willing to endure together. The rhythm steadied beneath our boots, stronger now, certain. Her laughter rose, soft and surprised, as if joy itself felt new against her skin. Outside, dawn hinted at the edge of the prairie, a pale ribbon along the horizon. The night had tested us. Smoke, stares, judgment. Yet she stood taller. Her scar gleamed like a medal shaped by flame. "I want to see the north pasture," she said. "Tomorrow." Not a request, a decision. I pictured the broken fence lines, the stubborn earth, work that demanded grit and patience. "You rise early?" I asked. She smiled. "I rise ready." The words sent a quiet shock through me. This was no sheltered daughter hiding behind fortune. This was a woman choosing her ground. Her father approached once more, hat resting against his chest. "The land answers effort," he said. "It respects those who remain." Remain. The word echoed deep. He studied our joined hands. No protest, only thought. "It's how I built rails across states," he continued, "yet I never learned how to build mornings." A fragile honesty trembled in his voice. She stepped toward him, placed her ungloved hand over his weathered knuckles. "We build them now," she said gently. The barn quieted again, not from fear, from recognition. Something shifted in the air, like frost giving way to thaw. He nodded once more, this time with pride rising behind his eyes. The band began a final waltz before sunrise, soft, hopeful. I drew her close, feeling the steady strength in her frame. No trembling now, only resolve. Lantern light faded as natural light crept through wooden slats, gold replacing amber, dust drifting like tiny promises in the beams. "Stay beside me," she whispered. The request carried weight greater than any empire. "I stand beside you," I answered, "not as rescuer, as equal, as partner." As the music carried us through that fragile hour between night and morning, I felt the frontier awaken beyond the barn walls, fields waiting for seed, fences waiting for hands, lives waiting for courage. And with her breath warm against my collar and her heartbeat steady against my chest, I sensed that the true test of love would begin with the first strike of sunlight on open land, the first shared task beneath endless sky, the first moment when doubt returned and we chose again to remain, to labor, to forgive, to hope. And as the sun finally edged over the horizon and light spilled across her scarred yet radiant face, I tightened my hold just slightly, ready to step with her into the vast waiting day, where our work, our healing, and our unfolding story stretched onward across the wide and unclaimed frontier. Sunlight poured through the barn doors, bright, unforgiving, honest. The music faded into morning sounds, harness chains, distant cattle, wind combing through tall grass. She stepped out beside me into the open field. No hesitation, no veil, only resolve wrapped in white fabric now touched by dust. The north pasture waited beyond a low ridge. Fence posts leaned like tired soldiers, wire sagged. Earth split from last season's drought. She took it in slowly, breathing the scent of soil and ash still clinging to memory. "This land burns," she said softly, "and still it grows." A statement, a mirror. I handed her a pair of work gloves from my saddlebag, rough leather, unpolished. She slid them on without complaint, silk replaced by grit. Her father watched from the porch in the distance, not interfering, observing, measuring what love looked like in daylight. I drove the first new post into the ground. The strike of the hammer rang sharp across the pasture. She flinched at the sound. A flash crossed her eyes. Not fear, memory. Then she steadied, reached for the wire, pulled it taut with surprising strength. The metal sang under tension, a clean, high note. Sweat formed at her temple, tracing the silver edge of her scar. She did not wipe it away. She worked, each movement deliberate, each breath earned. Hours passed beneath rising heat. Blisters formed beneath her gloves. She kept going. At noon, clouds gathered without warning, dark, heavy. Thunder rolled low across the plains, a storm building fast. Wind whipped dust into spirals around us. The unfinished fence rattled. My pulse quickened. Old wood, loose wire, lightning searching for height. She stood firm beside the final post, hair lashing across her face. Rain struck sudden and cold. A sharp crack split the sky. White light tore across the ridge and struck a dead tree 50 yards away. The ground shuddered beneath our boots. For one suspended second, the scent of ozone filled the air. Her body froze again. Fire remembered, loss remembered. The storm roared louder. I stepped toward her, not shielding, standing. "You are here," I said over the wind. Her eyes locked onto mine, wild, searching. "You stand," I told her. Another thunderclap shook the pasture. Rain drenched us both. She inhaled sharply, then drove the final staple into the post with one fierce strike, defiant, alive. The fence held, wire stretched strong against the storm. Water streamed down her face, over scar and skin alike, washing dust away. She began to laugh, not fragile laughter, triumphant. Her father ran toward us through the rain, concern etched deep. He saw the finished line of posts, saw her standing unbroken beneath lightning and wind. Something inside him shifted again. The storm raged on, yet we remained there together in the open pasture, soaked, breathing hard, hands raw from work, watching the fence endure against the violence of sky and memory. And as the thunder rolled farther into the distance and the rain softened into a steady cleansing fall, she reached for my hand once more, grip firm and certain. And I felt that this land, this love, this hard-earned partnership was only beginning to test its strength beneath gathering clouds that promised more trials ahead across the vast and waiting frontier. Rain softened to a silver mist. Thunder drifted east. The pasture breathed again. Water clung to her lashes, trembling like fragile glass before falling. Her grip on my hand remained firm, certain, alive. Her father reached us at last, coat soaked through, boots heavy with mud. He stopped short when he saw the fence line, straight, unbroken, standing against the storm. Pride flickered across his face, cautious but real. She faced him without lowering her chin. No shield, no apology. Only strength earned in rain and thunder. "I remember the fire," she said quietly. The words settled into the wet earth between us. "I remember screaming for air." Wind brushed the tall grass low around our knees. Her father's jaw tightened. Pain lived there, regret carved deep. "But today," she continued, "I remember this more." She lifted her blistered hands, mud beneath her nails, wire cuts along her gloves, work etched into skin. "I remember standing." Silence spread wide across the field. Even the cattle seemed still. Her father stepped closer. Rain dripped from the brim of his hat. "I built walls after that night," he said. "High ones." His voice roughened. "I feared losing you again." She softened them, not weak, understanding. "I needed space to heal," she answered, "not a cage." The truth struck sharp as lightning. He absorbed it slowly, like earth drinking rain. I watched them both, heart pounding with the weight of this fragile repair. The fence behind us hummed in the cooling wind, proof of effort, proof of endurance. He reached out at last and brushed her damp hair from her scar. No flinch, no hesitation. Only a father touching his daughter as if seeing her fully for the first time. "You are stronger than my fear," he said. The confession cracked open the final distance between them. She stepped into his embrace, careful, earned. I turned slightly away to grant them that sacred moment, yet she reached back and caught my hand, pulling me close so I stood with them beneath the clearing sky. Clouds parted overhead. Sunlight broke through in long golden beams across wet grass and shining wire. The frontier smelled new, washed clean, opportunity rising from soaked soil. Her father released her slowly and met my gaze. "I see why you stand," he said. "Not approval alone, respect, the kind forged in trial." She looked between us, eyes bright with something deeper than relief. Purpose. "We build more than fences," she said. "We build mornings, fields, a life wide enough for scars and strength." The wind carried her words across the pasture, across miles of waiting land. And as the sun climbed higher, warming our chilled skin, I felt the next chapter pressing forward already. More work to face, more memories to confront, more storms certain to gather on distant horizons. Yet with her hand steady in mine, and her father walking beside us back toward the ranch house, I sensed that love here would never be delicate or easy. It would be carved from labor and truth and forgiveness, tested again and again beneath open sky. And we stepped together toward the house where plans awaited, where decisions loomed, where the vast frontier continued to stretch beyond sight, ready to measure the depth of what we had begun to build, and ready to demand even greater courage from us all. Weeks turned into months. Fence lines straightened across the prairie. Fields answered with green shoots. Morning after morning we rose before the sun, side by side. Work first, love woven quietly through labor. Her laughter grew easier in daylight. Her scar caught light without apology. Townsfolk who once stared now nodded with respect. Strength recognizes strength. One evening, as harvest painted the horizon gold, her father stood with us at the ridge. The land rolled wide and steady beneath an endless sky. "You built more than pasture," he said. "You built trust." His voice carried no iron now, only gratitude. She slipped her hand into mine, calloused fingers, certain grip. "I feared the fire would define me," she said softly. "It refined you," I answered. The wind moved gently through tall grass. No smoke, no thunder, only the steady rhythm of a life earned. She turned toward the ranch house, glowing warm in twilight. "Love feels different than I imagined," she admitted. "Less grand, more grounded." I smiled. Grand things fade, grounded things endure. Her father removed his hat, gazing over rails stretching toward distant hills. "I built empires chasing legacy," he said. "You two built legacy by remaining." Silence settled, rich and peaceful. The frontier no longer felt wild and wounded. It felt alive, partnered. We walked back together beneath a sky scattered with early stars, boots brushing dust that once carried doubt, now it carried promise. At the porch steps, she paused and faced me. "If another storm comes," she asked. "It will," I said gently, "and we stand again." Her eyes shone with certainty born from fire, rain, and honest work. In that quiet moment, I understood the truth this land had been teaching us all along. Scars are not endings, they are evidence of survival. Protection without trust becomes a prison. Love without labor becomes fragile. But love joined with courage, patience, and shared effort becomes unshakable. We stepped inside where light and warmth waited, carrying with us the dust of the day and the wisdom earned beneath open sky, knowing that every hardship ahead would ask the same question of our hearts, and that the answer would always be found not in fear or pride, but in choosing to remain, to work, to forgive, and to stand together on whatever ground life placed beneath our feet.